everyone, and welcome to another episode of our KinderUSA speaker series. And as I've been saying every week as we're doing this, that this Ramadan, we chose to do something a little bit different. And rather than have speakers that are well known and, scholars and activists and so on, we chose to highlight and shine the light on some of the heroes that are actually doing the work on the ground where the need is greatest, whether it be in Gaza or in the West Bank, or in today's case, in the refugee camps in Lebanon. And we often forget that the Palestinian crisis goes beyond just the situation in Palestine and well into the surrounding countries, and the refugee camps in Lebanon need so much help. And we're lucky to have with us a partner on the ground, and they are FingerPrint for Change. And they are working on several things, but mainly what is really important that we're going to discuss today is their Ramadan program, which is a Ramadan food distribution program and mobile library. So in a minute, we will bring in Luban Tai, who's the founder of FingerPrint for Change, to tell us about that. But before we get to that, I'm really excited to have with us our chairperson of KinderUSA, Dr. Leila Marayati, to talk a little bit about her personal experience. She's been going to the camps in Lebanon for a decade, I imagine, and was there not too long ago, probably before the pandemic, a while before the pandemic. And we want to hear from her about what she saw, what the situation was like, and to kind of paint a picture of the real need that is there. And once again, as I always say, the reason we're doing this is to highlight these programs, highlight these heroes working on the ground, let you know where your contribution dollars go. And every penny, every dollar always makes a difference in the lives of these people that are forgotten by the world almost, whether it be food distribution or hygiene or any of the things they truly, the basic needs that we take for granted, they don't often get to have. And especially with obviously the pandemic, things have gotten even worse. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But first, we've got with us Dr. Leila. Leila, I'm so happy to have you with us today.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Maha.
So I want to ask you a little bit about, as I was mentioning, the refugee camps. And I know that you were there almost 2 years ago, I think. So tell me a little bit about the situation and what you saw and the need that we may not all be aware of.
Well, I think first in general, it's important to understand that the Palestinians have been refugees in Lebanon for, since they fled Palestine, especially after 1967. And their status in Lebanon is really not as full citizens, and many of those who are impoverished live in the refugee camps and struggle, whether it comes to education, whether access to health care, jobs. So many areas if people were interested to find out about what it is to be a Palestinian refugee in Lebanon. And so we started going, knowing that this was a population in need within the mission of KinderUSA to help Palestinian children and their families. Soon after, one of the camps in northern Lebanon, Nahr al-Bared, had been destroyed, and that was really my first introduction to the camps and visiting Badawi, visiting later on in subsequent years, Shatila camp in Beirut, and then definitely Ain al-Halwa and other camps in southern Lebanon. And you just got an appreciation of really the struggle of life. And at one point then, there were Palestinian refugees who had been living in Syria who were fleeing the fighting there. And the only place they could find safe haven was in a Palestinian refugee camp in Lebanon. And it was a very rude awakening for them because it was a much harsher lifestyle than they had been used to. So throughout all of this time, we have been working to with partners that are helping mostly children in schools. This program has to do a lot with nutrition, but also our first introduction to FingerPrints of Change was related to their mobile library, which is very much in concert with our interest in getting education to the kids on the fringe, maybe who aren't in school, who are living in camps or in these so-called gatherings where they really don't have access to any kind of infrastructure. And that's the kind of work we've been doing for this over a decade in Lebanon in the camps.
Mhm. And just to talk about some of the things that really made you feel this kind of urgency. I mean, when you talked about obviously the harsh reality of being there, but if you can kind of dig into that a little bit and tell us about the need and the urgency for helping these children and their families out.
When you see the stories, and we, working, for example, with a school in southern Lebanon, the children who maybe don't have papers and can't go to school and are out on the street and have no access to education, or they're failing in school because they have special needs. We have so many resources that we're so used to that are not available to any of these kids in this situation, and nobody is really paying attention to them as a group. Right? Who really talks about Palestinian refugees in Lebanon as their primary source of beneficiaries? And so you just look at these kids who have no future unless somebody steps in to make a difference in their lives and give them a sense of hope. I think for some of these really truly impoverished families, and like I said, especially some of them fleeing Syria, it's a devastating situation and very desperate, without any sense that things are going to get better, especially as the situation in Lebanon deteriorates for Lebanese people. And the Palestinians are even, less of a priority.
Well, on that note, I want to bring in Luban. Luban is the founder of Fingerprint for Change. Fingerprint for Change is implementing food security through distribution of food items and cooking activities during Ramadan. When people are fasting and facing difficulty in ensuring food availability in order to face the food scarcity in the targeted communities. And then we'll also talk about the mobile library, which is an effort, as you were mentioning, an effort to improve education, equipping the library with books, stationery, and learning materials used in active learning sessions focused on illiterate children, out-of-school children, like you were talking about, and online learning students. So really just trying to make a difference in these kids' lives and, like you said, give them any kind of hope or opportunity that they could better their lives and through education. And so I'm really happy to have with us today the founder of Fingerprint of Change, and that's Luban Tai. Luban, are you there?
Hello. Yes.
Hello, Luban. How are you?
Hello, how are you? Good. And you?
I'm good, thank you. So you're in Beirut, huh?
Yes, Lebanon, Beirut.
So tell me a little bit about the programs that we've been discussing that you guys are doing in the camp right now, which is the food distribution program and the mobile library. I want to hear it from you.
We started this project in Sabra and Shatila, that are Palestinian camp in Beirut, and in Burj Barajni camp. It's another Palestinian camp. And in the area surrounding those camps, where are living Syrian refugees, Iraqi, Sudanese, and Lebanese families. We're providing food for around 300 families per day. Each family can receive 3 days per week, and the most vulnerable family would receive 4 days per week.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you, I mean, you talked about the force majeure, and obviously with the pandemic, with the catastrophe of COVID, and then the port explosion and just the economic crisis and all of these different factors, how has that impacted the need across the board?
So in principle, 18% of our products in Lebanon are imported products. So we don't have Lebanese products. When we had the explosion of the port, we have difficulty to import products. And as you may know, the border in Lebanon, we have the border with Syria and the border with Palestine. We are not able to bring food from there or any other product. So this made many products out of stock. And we have the financial crisis, so the dollar is out of stock, so we're not able to buy product as much as we want. This made a huge change in the prices of anything that Lebanese or non-Lebanese residents should buy. They don't have anymore the capacity to buy the products that are very, very, very expensive now. So an iftar for a simple family may cost around 100,000 Lebanese pound. if you calculate it for months. So this amount would be 4 times more than a salary of any employee in Lebanon.
Wow. Yes, that definitely makes things incredibly challenging. And what are you guys doing to try to overcome these challenges? Or, how are you trying to work around these incredibly difficult obstacles to make sure that that people are still, or the most vulnerable people are still receiving food and some supplies?
First, we are distributing the hot meal. Our project aim at distributing meals, but sorry, I'm speaking in Arabic. It aims to distribute food, but we aim at boosting the economy in the area. So whenever we buy products, we buy all the products for the local community. The people who are working and who planned at the beginning with us for implementing this project are people from the local community. So we are trying to empower the women and the youth to take a role in the empowerment of the overall community where we are distributing. They are cooking the food, and we are distributing it at the time of iftar. The meal should be hot and ready for them. What we did before starting this project, we did an evaluation. We visited the areas and the municipalities, the well-known people, to get the names of who they may be in need to our port. So with this distribution, we distribute the food, and we distribute vegetable and other things that help them cook in the day after.
So for the day that they're not getting food distribution, they can make a meal for themselves, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
So, I think that this is, obviously incredibly important. And it sounds like what you're doing is trying to also find ways to help them sustain, not just have this one meal today and then nothing, but having, trying to support the local economy so that they can be able to improve things a little bit on their own, which I think is wonderful. I want to talk also a little bit about the mobile library, because that is a fundamentally different kind of project. I think that helps, a different kind of nourishing for these children and their families. So tell me a little bit about the library.
So while working in the mobile library, we noticed that people are in need of education. Now in Lebanon, we have a problem of electricity, we have the economical problem, and people who are living in camp, they don't have access to internet. So the children don't have at all access to education. They are at home since the pandemic. So we decided to find the project of this year, which is the mobile school. The project is divided into components. The first component is for the children who are out of school, and the other component, the most important, is the component of illiteracy. We're providing around 10 schooling hours per week. It's not only about education. It's when we were in one of the camps, there were a Palestinian Syrian woman who were telling us what happened in Syria and why she left her town. She was talking about many things that really hard. They faced things that you cannot imagine that anyone faced, and she was very strong while about this. When she started talking about education, that her children are able to reach education, so they are losing their future, she started crying. And we saw that many children are expressing their need to education. They do really want to be educated. They want to guarantee their future, even if they are small children. So this is how we decided that we have to do something to reply to this need, specific need.
So I want to bring Leila back in with us for a minute. Leila, are you there?
Yeah.
Leila, I just, we've heard from Luban about the, the programs that are happening, but I want to kind of hear from your side about Kinder selecting Fingerprint of Change as a partner, and about your perspective on the programs that they're doing.
Well, first I want to say it's great to meet you, Luban, and to thank you and your team for everything that you've been doing. Inshallah, I'll have a chance to visit Lebanon again in the your future and can meet everybody. But I think Luban said it very clearly, the kinds of work we do that we're looking for, which is very similar to what we do in Gaza, is support the local community, engage the local community to tell us what their needs are, by supporting the local vendors to get the produce that's needed for the families, to employ women as well as the youth. Those are all really in sync and in alignment with what KinderUSA has been about since we started 20 years ago.
I definitely, as I was hearing Luban talking, I was thinking that, as in all my time with Kinder over the past, I don't know how many years now, it's been about 10 years, I think, that it sounded exactly that. It sounded very aligned with what I've always heard you say, which is not to just hand out food at these people. I mean, obviously, sometimes that's very important. They do need, immediately. There's a real need for food distribution, but also trying to really help the communities by seeing what their needs are and by trying to help them in ways that are more sustainable. So I think that programs, I definitely hope that you keep them up, Luban, and I hope that we are able, even just from our conversation today, to raise additional funds to help you grow the programs and help these children and their families.
As you said, for some people, they feel some kind of shame and taking a handout or charity, and we do really appreciate your respect for them and sensitivity to that, because that is another thing that we've always focused on. It's why we don't just give handouts. It's sort of letting them be part of the process and realize, like you said, this is a family taking care of itself, community helping itself, and it's meant to be respectful. So we really appreciate that you are so sensitive to that as well. So important.
Thank you.
Luban, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for taking the time in the evening over there in Beirut to talk with us. And thank you for everything you're doing on a daily basis. And I hope that everyone listening to us today understands the extreme need that is there in these camps for these children and for their families. And these, like you were saying, I mean, 4 single moms working in the community kitchen, raising their children and work. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot when you think about it. And so I really hope that we can continue to provide funds for you to run the programs and actually grow them and continue with them. And Leila, obviously, thank you for being with us. I know that you're always running around doing 50 million things. And so thank you for being with us to talk a little bit with Luban and to also tell us about what you've seen over there and the experiences that you've had.
So I want to just wish you both Ramadan Mubarak. We're already more than halfway through, and God bless you again for all the work you're doing to help those who are fasting right now too in Lebanon. We know that makes it also a little tougher. So
thank you both so much.
Thank you.
So thank you all for joining us, and thank you for listening to our conversation. And I hope that, like myself, you were able to find out a little bit more about the extreme need that is there for these children in these camps, and just the basic things that we take for granted. They don't even have that luxury. And trying to help with education, trying to make sure that they have even an inkling of hope for a future. And as I always say at the end of our episodes, please remember that go to KinderUSA.org. Any amount that you can help with during this holy month of Ramadan will make a huge difference in these people's lives. So please consider going to KinderUSA.org and making a contribution. And we'll see you again with another episode very soon.